Ladies and gentlemen, I am coming to you live from my off-season bunker, which, as you know, generally doesn't have internet connectivity. It's thousands of miles away from where I normally broadcast 5-star radio in a secret layer. This is all just green screen. I'm not really in my office. I'm somewhere closer to the North Pole. But I felt it was my duty and my privilege to come to you on a random off-season Saturday for an emergency broadcast. I think that this has been the most purely surprising and I guess interesting week of an off-season in my 34 years of life as a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. I just can't believe what has happened in the last 6 days. It feels like it's been a month. I was watching the Oscars. Everybody knows I'm a big film head, and I get home and I see the tweet about Russell Wilson, and I can't believe that was 5 days ago. I can't believe that was 5 days ago. So we'll talk, we're going to have a fun time. Obviously, I have to acknowledge my wonderful co-host who you and I both haven't seen or talked to much in the last month and a half, 2 months, whatever it is, since the Steelers got ceremoniously eliminated from the first round of the playoffs like they do every single goddamn fucking year. Gage Ryan Video, how you doing, bud?
Oh, just great. How's it going, everybody? Oh man, I'll tell you what, as far as we'll just touch on the Bills game real quickly. It went exactly as you would probably expect.
We are not doing a wrap up. Fair
enough. That's the whole wrap up. That's it right there.
Yeah. Bills let him stick around. Yeah, whatever. I'm not talking about that. We're not here to talk about that. We have to acknowledge, obviously, the purple elephant in the room. You've all, that's why you're here. I got new glasses. So, thanks, man. I got them from Warby Parker, the online thing. They were pretty cheap for glasses. I like them. got the blue light filter. No, obviously you are here to listen to mine and Gage's opinions on, on the Steelers' acquisition of Mr. Unlimited Russell Wilson and the subsequent dismissal for a bag of peanuts to the Philadelphia Eagles of Kenny Pickett. And just gut reaction. Should we do it in time? You want to do like piece by piece and kind of like how should we unpack that? Or do you have anything just top of your mind you want to get rid of first?
I mean, like, on one hand, Russell Wilson is a Super Bowl winning quarterback, and we got him for $1 million. So there's really not a lot of downside to speak of. I mean, you might as well I think we talked about this before we went on the air.
Shout out 5-star famous sirens. They're back.
5-star sirens. Fuck yes. Every day. But like, do those go off every single day where you live? I imagine, right?
Yeah, dude. I mean, the population density of Brooklyn, there's probably more people within 500 feet of me right now than there are in half a mile of you. Quarter mile, a mile, whatever.
I would say I live relatively in the middle of nowhere, so no, you're probably right on that one. But the 5-star, God, the sirens actually got me completely off track. But yeah, as far as Russell Wilson goes, I mean, you get him for $1 million, you let Denver pay for it, that's all well and good. At the same time, there is something to be said for the Denver Broncos willing to lose, what is it, something in the realm of $80 million to not have him on the team anymore. I don't know what to think anymore, man. I mean, like, is Kenny Pickett or Mason Rudolph, are either of them going to be any better than Russell Wilson? No, probably not. I highly doubt that. So do you call this a win? I think you have to. I mean, I was surprised we got a 3rd-round pick for Kenny Pickett, if anything. Mason Rudolph, he left. That sucks. I wish we would have paid him the $4 million that he asked for, but whatever. But just in general, man, like, is this going to get us any closer to a Super Bowl? Probably not. It feels like we were talking about the offensive coordinator with Band-Aids on top of Band-Aids.
Of Kenny Pickett. It sent me a notification that Kenny Pickett posted on Instagram.
The Eagles jersey.
Yeah, I don't know why it's not focusing on it, but there you go.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's the thing. I've seen people say like, "Oh, this is poor management" or whatever.
It was the best you were going to get for Kenny.
No, I have to agree. I just thought, once it became evident that nobody was going to make a big swing on Wilson and they were going to cut him, you start to rifle through the names, right? And I'm familiar with teams that are quarterback hungry because I was talking about this before all this happened. I was talking a lot about the Justin Fields trade market with like friends of mine, right? Because I was just like, I just don't even see a fit for him to go anywhere. And, so I was looking at the teams and I didn't see, where else it made more sense for Russell Wilson unless, maybe Oakland, the Raiders. I was like, okay, I could kind of see that, but I think they're going to probably go back with Aiden O'Connell this year. I think they probably saw enough to think it's worth trying. And so I didn't see a fit. And I started to think, man, like if you can get him for $1 million, I mean, even if you're just bringing him in to be like a leader and be a backup, makes a lot of sense for the Steelers. And then of course they did that. And I knew him and Tomlin would be thick as thieves right away. They're just cut from the same sort of cloth. So that made sense that they hit it off. So I guess I wouldn't say I was stunned that they actually signed him after they met, but I am very stunned at the way this played out with Pickett, though. I really am. It really took me by surprise. I had thought that maybe it could happen, like maybe they could decide come camp that, somebody was like desperate for a quarterback, Minnesota maybe, right? And they decide, we're going to desperation move a second for Kenny Pickett. And you say, okay, great, we'll take it. But I didn't think that this was going to happen like this. And by all accounts, man, he's getting absolutely slammed by almost everyone in the local media right now for coming off as, excuse my French, a bit of a bitch. I don't know. It's coming. It's been a crazy 24 hours is all.
It really has been. And I've been in my place of work. I have regulars that come in, and we talk Steelers all the time. And I was defending Kenny, man. Even when the Russell Wilson signing happened, I was like, look, he'll probably sit for this year. He'll learn. He'll realize his mistakes. It's not like Kenny Pickett. Like I really detest just because people think he's a bit of a punk, and they very well might be right. Maybe. Uh,
We don't know.
but
I
like,
mean, that's the reality. We don't know.
yeah, but like when I saw Kenny Pickett's game, it was like if he just fixes, it wasn't like Justin Fields where he has a million issues that you have to address. He had a couple glaring flaws that under the right offensive mind could be ironed out. I thought that he would probably, if you gave him another year or two in Pittsburgh, I thought he would level out as probably Alex Smith, if that makes sense. And I thought that was fine. I mean, like maybe that's not the guy that you stick with long term, but I thought leveling out as an Alex Smith or just kind of a CJ Stroud type. He would never reach CJ Stroud's type. I know. I'm just using it as an example. But then we saw the news that he requested a trade and left, and I was just dumbfounded because then I had to eat so much crow from all my regulars, being like, "Hey, how'd that Kenny Pickett? I was going to really motivate him, huh?" And I was, okay, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I'm just disappointed, man. I'm disappointed. I liked Kenny, past tense. No, but like I thought that he could have been the guy of the future. I really did, and so it's disappointing. I wonder who the guy of the future is going to be now. It really does leave it wide open, and I think that that's also exciting in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that for me is, what I am most happy about, which is like, I couldn't do this again. Like I was getting so depressed about the prospect of watching Mason Rudolph and Kenny Pickett just come back and do the same thing again. I was proud of Mason last year. And as everybody knows, we're the internet's foremost Mason Rudolph stans. I got somebody in my comments today. This is again why I disappear for the offseason, because like I post 4 things on Twitter and you're already getting arguments where you're like, oh my God, shut the fuck up. Like I had somebody being like, oh, well, everybody always hated Mason and blah. I'm like, bro, you're talking to the wrong person. Okay, but
can we mention that? Can we mention that comment? Because you know the one I'm talking about, right?
I don't know. Which one are you talking about specifically?
There was a comment on I think it was either your last episode of 5-Star Matchup that year, or it was my video on the return of Mason Rudolph. It was one of the two. But someone had mentioned like none of you had his back in 2019.
Oh
you
yeah,
guys are all the bandwagoners. And I was like, we're the only channel on YouTube you can't say that about. And
I know.
It's crazy.
It's funny. I love when people accuse. I'm like, dude, it's, first of all, it doesn't even matter. What does it matter what I said 5 years ago? But yeah, I see it this way is like, I think that, yeah, after seeing the way things played out and how much or how little Mason Rudolph really fetched as a backup option, I would have offered him $4 million to stay, but I guess maybe he just wanted to move on. And maybe if they're going to really move forward with this Art Smith kind of thing, and you look at the type of quarterback Russell Wilson is, we've heard the conversation around mobility for years. He's not as mobile as he once was, but still he gives you a guy that's going to be able to run bootlegs and all that kind of thing at a high level. And, Mason Rudolph just isn't really that kind of a quarterback. And, you typically want the backup quarterback to have the same sort of archetype. So I guess, if they're really doing that, I guess maybe I could see where Mason Rudolph doesn't make sense as a backup. So I can't knock them for that. I don't think they anticipated this with Pickett, though, because I think, when you read between the lines and you look at this reporting, the Steelers, there are reporters, and I say this all the time, like, it makes me laugh when people on like Twitter or whatever yell at, in particular, Jerry Dulac and say, you're always fucking wrong and you don't know what you're talking about. And you're just trying to... I'm just telling you as a fact, there is nobody that is more literally a mouthpiece for the Steelers than Jerry Dulac. Like, that's who he is. It's there's nothing wrong with that. Their teams have this is part of the process, and he's been, yeah. And So, when he's saying something like some of the stuff he's reporting in the last day, it's how the Steelers felt. And clearly they were really surprised that Kenny Pickett, I saw the words reacting poorly to the Russell Wilson acquisition. These are code words, man, and they're not painting a pretty picture of Pickett. So what do you make of that? I mean, how about this? Is he justified? Like, is it fair of him to say, you put me in a fucking horrible position. Now you're putting me in another position where, like, I'm going to go out and have one, even if I were to win the job, I'm going to go out in week 1, and it'd be the same thing if they brought Rudolph back. If he had one bad half, the crowd's, let's go Wilson, like whatever it is. So is he, I don't know. Is he a bitch, or is he kind of justified in what's happening here? I don't know.
I don't know, man. I mean, like, I understand both sides. I don't think that really, I don't think this can be painted as a good guy versus bad guy fiasco. I think we can all agree, you, me, and literally every single person watching right now can probably agree that they've handled the quarterback position horribly the last few years, and they have made very little, if any, attempt to put Kenny Pickett in a position to succeed. We just had C.J. Stroud, a goddamn rookie, put up over 4,000 yards and one of the best touchdown to interception ratios in the entire goddamn NFL. And I will repeat, as a rookie. Yeah. We had Brock Purdy last year as a rookie, made it all the way to the NFC Championship game. Should he probably have made it that far? It's debatable, but he did at the end of the day. He had a Tom Brady run. Good for him. But it's one of those things where, like, you look at, and he's never had a good OC. Mike Tomlin doesn't know. I'm pretty sure Mike Tomlin doesn't do anything with the offense outside of, like, his general, like, do you think that I don't think it's a coincidence that we go run, pass all the time, regardless of who the offensive coordinator is. I think that's because that's Mike Tomlin saying this is what we want to do. And I don't know, man. I think that Kenny has a right to be pissed, but I also think that he made a dumb mistake going to the Eagles because I can't stand to be a backup. Trade me somewhere else. So we trade him to another place where he's going to be a backup. He had a way better shot of playing again, like on the Steelers with Russell Wilson than he did with Jalen Hurts and that monster $250 million contract of his.
That I totally agree with. I mean, he has no chance to compete for even reps in Philly. So you're absolutely right there. I'll respond to that in a second. Just wait a second. I just have to, because somebody's taking an issue with my Jerry Dulac thing here. Donald Nolan, right? He says the Steelers are all in. Last week, Dulac said Steelers are all in on Pickett, not interested in veterans to compete with him. Then Russ gets picked up a few days later. Pickett gone. Dulac is usually wrong. Again, okay. Who said the Steelers are all in and have full confidence on Kenny Pickett? Omar Khan literally said it to a camera. Like, that's my point. Like, the team uses information and misinformation this is how PR works, folks. This is how the industry moves. The way, when Adam Schefter tweets out, my friends and I talk about this all the time. Like, Adam Schefter tweets out Jonnu Smith signs with the New England Patriots. And then it's like a sentence after that's like, a dynamic pass-catching tight end for the quarterback to throw out touchdowns to. That's the agent. You know that, right? Like, that's the agent said, can you put in this little, like, I'm giving you this scoop. Can you put in this flowery language about how good Jonnu Smith is? And like,
oh, yeah, he was really good at being a mouthpiece for Deshaun Watson a couple years ago.
Yes, I forget sometimes that I, like, work in media in a real capacity outside of 5-star. So some people, this is how it works. I'm just telling you, like, if they're wrong, it's because they were fed information to help a negotiation, help a thing, okay, whatever. Besides that, responding to your, what even was your point? I don't know. I'm all over the place, guys. I am coming in a million miles a minute this morning.
That's okay. I mean, like, it just in total, man, I just, the Russell Wilson signing, it's interesting. It's a splash. I mean, that's great. I mean, I just don't think it's going to get us any closer to a Super Bowl. I think anybody that is expecting prime MVP from Russell Wilson, you're out of your goddamn mind. Excuse me, I apologize.
No, I mean, I don't think you have to expect him to be great, though. Like, I think, last year he went out.
He'll be okay.
last year he went out and threw for 3,000 yards, and I think he played 15 games, and he threw for 3,000 yards, 26 touchdowns, and 8 picks with a 98 rating. I'll sign up for that all day. All day.
Yeah.
I mean,
freaking Ben Roethlisberger's career average was 94. So
yeah, I mean, look, I'm not anticipating that he's going to be flawless, but I am anticipating that, like, you have a guy who has shown the ability to do it and has done it. I mean, it's like Ben, even in his year 1,000, right? We still would say, okay, well, you know what, though? We've been there with Ben. Ben's done it. He's in the huddle and he can look at Deontay Johnson in the face and say, I've won a Super Bowl. This is what we need to do it. And they have to listen to that because he's done it. He's done twice. And the Steelers, I think, especially on the offensive side of the ball, I've talked about this, had no leadership whatsoever once Roethlisberger left. None. Everybody shit on Ben.
Najee, and that was it.
Everybody shit on Ben for being a bad leader his whole career, when that was really only the case the first half of his career. And the second half of his career, yes, he was distant and guarded, but, he had some stuff happen to him that forced him to be distant and guarded. But once he left... Your response. Once he left, we basically got into a situation where it was like, okay, Juju for, like a year. Well, no, Juju was still with Ben, I guess. But, you were looking at the team around him and you're like, who are the leaders? Like Deontay Johnson just by tenure. But like, did anybody ever really think Deontay Johnson was a leader in the locker room? I think it was always evident that he was something of a malcontent. We haven't even talked about Deontay Johnson getting traded off. This is insane. This is like, they are just totally going all in on this mindset of, we want volunteers, not hostages. And I don't know whether you agree with it, whether you think it makes them a better player, better team on paper. You can't argue. They're moving the people that seem to be attitude problems, and they're bringing in people that, whatever you want to say about Russell Wilson, you and I have both killed him for being corny and all that kind of stuff. But whatever you want to say about him and Patrick Queen and, whatever else, they're adding guys. They're adding guys that are good people off the field, very much sort of like head down, like go to work kind of guys. And they're subtracting people that, whether they want it bad or work hard. I'm not denying Deontay Johnson did, worked hard to be good at his craft and all that kind of stuff. But they're shipping off guys that just don't fit that mold. And I guess you got to commend them. I don't know if it's making them a better team on paper, but it's definitely making them a better team, I think, in theory.
It's making it a team that's a lot less annoying to watch. Like this is nowhere near as bad as this era. I want to make it very clear, but like I would get like flashbacks to the Kardashians era of the Steelers with Ben and AB and Bell and just everybody and Mike Mitchell, and just nobody knew how to shut the hell up sometimes.
Yeah, but but that team though, I've said it. I know, but I said that a million times though. That team was good enough that it was worth it. It's a toxic spouse where the sex is really good. It didn't matter because every Sunday we were like, oh, fuck yeah, 38 points on the fucking Saints. Like, fuck you, like whatever it was. And you forget about it. And then Tuesday, it's a problem again. Wednesday, it's a problem again. Thursday, she's throwing your shit out on the curb. And Sunday, she's throwing for 6 touchdowns against the fucking Colts. You know what I mean? Like, it was worth it. And what we had happen last couple years was we had a team where it's like, oh, Deontay Johnson and Mitchell Trubisky were fighting in the locker room, and I'm like, I don't give a shit. I would punch Mitchell Trubisky too. He fucking sucks. Because it was guys that you're like, what do I ever see them do? That's why I like Najee, because Najee's a guy that, like, I've seen him go out there. He was there with Ben, and he, like you said, is the de facto leader of the offense right now. And it's unusual for running back to be in that spot, but he's handled it all with grace. But, to be honest with you, he's probably going to dart the second he can too. But I don't know. I
think that it's cool that they're finally split reps with him.
Oh yeah, Jalen. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that was a big problem for the last number of years. It felt like they were running Najee into the ground. And to get pretty much a 50-50 split with running backs, I think was great. So I think that I think maybe that might be a reason that Najee might stay, is maybe because he's not
Yeah,
getting,
maybe.
you know, yeah, what's the word? Bell cowed into the ground. I did
Yeah.
want to mention this. I know that the topic of Ben in his last year has kind of passed, but I did want to mention real quick that Ben Roethlisberger having 3,700 yards, 22 touchdowns, and only 10 picks in a Matt Canada offense with no legs, I think might be one of the biggest accomplishments of his career.
Yeah, well, no, I totally agree. I said when he retired, I think that when you go back and look at the legacy conversation, it's never going to be anything that anybody ever brings up. But in my opinion, I always thought him making the playoffs in 21 was one of the better accomplishments of his career. That team fucking sucked. That was the worst. That team sucked. Like, they were not good at anything, and I don't want to hear it because I've been covering this team now, in this capacity for 5 full seasons, and I've been watching for 34 of them or whatever. Mm-hmm. If you count me watching as a baby, I don't know if that counts, but maybe 20, maybe 25 consciously, And that team sucked, man. That was a terrible team. Even the defense wasn't particularly good. Ben was so clearly, 'cause Ben was so shot, and and they stumbled into the playoffs. I think that the Steelers have benefited from that 7th seed as much as anybody. I think that like if they would have made it another time if they had the 7th seed already in 2019 or whatever it was, and 18, I think. So if you extended that back a couple of years, the Steelers would be in the playoffs almost every single year. But they'd get throttled every year.
Yeah. And I mean, I gotta say, just speaking of 7th seeds, quick shout out to the Green Bay Packers for sending the freaking Cowboys home with the first ever win with a 7th seed on a 2nd seed, was it? I think.
Yeah, that's how it matches up. Yeah.
Oh, so good. It was so good.
Yeah, no, we love to see it.
To see that.
No, shout out Jordan Love. I'll say it on the record for my buddy who's a Packers fan. I didn't think he was going to be good, and I'm wrong. He's really good. So. I thought Kenny Pickett was going to be good, and he's not. So, I think, to build on that point a little bit, because you mentioned the Matt Canada thing.
Yeah.
How do we divvy up now that we can look at it all in the rearview mirror? And this question goes out to everyone too. But I'm just going to ask you, like, how do we divvy up this blame for the offensive just overall debacle post Roethlisberger? Like, I think a lot of people last year were so quick to just say it's Matt Canada, Matt Canada, Matt Canada, and I'm giving you a platform because I know you were very pro Canada. Although by the end, I think you even were out, and I think we all acknowledged it needed to change. But I saw stuff on tape every single week where I'd be like, man, this is an easy touchdown, like easy touchdown, and Pickett just would not see it. Like ever, like even that last play, because I retweeted it before we went on the air, when somebody was like, "Oh, I can't believe I never would have thought this would have been Kenny Pickett's last play as a Steeler," and it's the one where he rushes toward the goal line against Arizona and doesn't score and hurts his ankle. And I quote tweeted it, and I was like, getting hurt and not scoring, I don't know, seems pretty on the nose to me.
And I was just gonna say, like, doing the hardest way possible to get like 3 yards.
And I remember, and even on that play, they had a motion with Calvin Austin to the left, and he was wide open. All he had to do was flip it out for an easy touchdown, and he never even looked at it. And like, I mean, say it's Canada, he taught him the wrong way, and this thing and that thing. Man, there were things, I'm telling you, because I was calling it during the year. You can go back and find the footage of me. I'm not a pro athlete. I don't even know how to call out coverages. I don't know any of that shit. But there were stuff that I would see that I would be like, in real time, I'm like, oh, you got to go to that read. Like, I knew from my years of just watching football on television where I was like, no, that's open, man. Like, that's open. And he just wouldn't see it. And it was constant, and it got worse and worse in the red zone. And it was just brutal, man. It was like pedaling uphill in sand. And I think, there were things that he did, because I always said, I gave Pickett the credit of people wanted to say, I think because he got the rap because of the small hands, like, oh, he can't play or he's too small or he's not. I am completely sold on Kenny Pickett's physical ability to play in the NFL. I am. I believe he physically can play in the NFL. He can make all the throws. He's not the most consistent. That's why he'll never be a good starter. But he can be a backup quarterback, and he could play for, half a season if you needed him to and be fine. Like, he'll be in the NFL for a while. But I don't, there just wasn't enough to say that this is the future. And there certainly wasn't enough to deal with him being a malcontent and being displeased with facing competition. Cause like you said, he still had a way better chance to play in Pittsburgh. I mean, you got a 35-year-old on a 1-year deal. I mean, I don't know. You're really that scared of that?
A lot of people were saying in the chat were saying it was the Gentry thing, and it might have been. I'm not going to say anything more about that. But as far as Kenny goes, I mean, he really did he's a backup right now. He's a backup right now, and he's a halfway decent backup. I think someone before the draft called him Case Keenum, and the more that his career continues to unwind, oh boy, is that starting to seem like where he's going to fall. I was gung-ho that his play style is exactly like Matt Hasselbeck, and yet he has the playing ability of someone like Case Keenum. So it's just this really unfortunate situation, especially whenever you have to go against Jalen Hurts, who's much better than that.
Well, Kenny Pickett would be lucky to ever have a year like Case Keenum did in 2017. I mean, it's never going to happen.
Sure. So as far as Matt Canada goes, and I mean, when he first came to Pittsburgh, I immediately went and watched all the college tape on his offense that I could. And the takeaways that I got from it were picture Sean McVay's Rams, where it's all split zone, not outside zone, specifically split zone. That's his favorite. Split zone and play action Yankee. Those are his two main concepts that he loved to play with. And then with Matt Canada, it was basically that. If anybody goes and watches his old college photo, I swear you'll see this. You see 3 to 4 motions per play, pretty much, where it was the tight end moves, then the tight end moves back, and then they flip the formation, then the wide receiver comes along. Have you noticed we did that when Matt Canada got to Pittsburgh and he started and became the offensive coordinator? Has anybody noticed that we were still last in the league in motion? I'm not saying that whether that's Matt's fault or maybe it wasn't, I don't know. But it was just weird that he had this really interesting and supposedly intricate offense in the college ranks. And then he gets to the Steelers and we run an offense that's, I don't know. Didn't we call it Band-Aids on top of Band-Aids?
Yeah, but you know what? It's interesting now that I'm thinking about this, and I this is part of what I wanted to do is kind of forensically unpack where we went wrong, how this happened. And I think, that was something we talked about a lot last year, that exact thing you just explained. But now that I'm thinking about it, it's okay, well, what was the limiter there? And why wasn't he doing it? And then you kind of take a step back and say, because his quarterbacks were Mitch Trubisky and Kenny Pickett. And maybe they just weren't really that good at it. And maybe they weren't really, I mean, because the two things we saw with Trubisky, the thing we saw each, right? So Trubisky, we saw a guy who looked, at least to me, like he was trying his damnedest to go through reads. He just was almost unequivocally making the wrong one and going ultra aggressive over the middle and getting picked all the time. That was that for me, that was the Trubisky experience. The one time it worked out, that Bucks game, he had a nice game and showed that he has physical ability. Mitchell Trubisky has physical ability again. He was a first round draft pick for a reason. And then Kenny Pickett, we saw a guy who didn't make a lot of mistakes, but he was ultra, ultra, ultra conservative and took no chances and just played almost entirely not to turn the ball over. And so you kind of wonder, maybe the reason they had to simplify the offense was because Kenny Pickett wasn't good at making NFL reads in real time.
Maybe.
I think it's clear to say, like, how many plays, you could, I mean, you can go back and look, but like, how many of Kenny Pickett's plays in his second season where you could go back and look at tape and be like, wow, he like stood in the pocket, he looked at one guy, another guy, back to the other, and just rifled it in. It's either, quick drop, first read, back shoulder throw, it's out. Quick drop, nothing's there, dump to the running back, it's out. Or it's, drop back, look, 1, 2, spin around, run away, get sacked, whatever it is. There was not a lot of in between. And that's the stuff that when you watch Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen, that's what makes them so good. Any NFL quarterback can throw the ball 50 yards. Some of them better than others, some of them with more power than others, etc. But any of them can mostly do it, at least in a passable way, for how often you actually throw the ball 50 yards down the field. But I think the difference between the really good quarterbacks and the ones that aren't so good are you just got to keep things moving. And the thing with Pickett was, we saw he can throw the ball deep and we saw he can keep an offense moving, but we didn't see a lot of just like, okay, second read, improvise, run, and there's Deontay Johnson for 14 yards. There wasn't a lot of that, just like, just that chug-a-lug and keeping things moving. And that's what Patrick Mahomes does so good. When you watch the Super Bowl, man, you're just like, he's like, all right, it's not there, I'll take the 7. All right, it's not there, I'll take the 9. All right, it's not there, I'll take 4. All right, it's there, I'll take 54 and a touchdown. Fuck you. Like exactly. And I just feel like I was surprised last year with the way that Tomlin handled the Pickett pseudo benching, because to me it didn't jibe with everything else I've seen Tomlin do. He's generally believed that you don't lose your job to injury if you're the guy. And he's never built a quarterback before. And everything I know about me said that he would not outwardly signal to the world that he didn't believe in his guy if he thought he had any chance to be the guy. If he had any chance to be the guy, he would not put doubt about that. He didn't start him with the playoffs on the line, and he didn't start him in the playoffs. Perfectly healthy, 6 weeks out from his surgery, 7 weeks out from his surgery, whatever it was by the end. And he had no question that he was going to go with the guy who he couldn't even bring himself to say a kind word about when he was tearing it the fuck up. So what does that say about how he feels about Kenny Pickett behind closed doors?
I think we were talking about this at the end of last season. It's like, when does Tomlin ever play the hot hand? He doesn't do it, like, often to his detriment, into the detriment of the team around him.
He doesn't believe in losing your job to injury. He doesn't believe in it. He's never done that before.
Even sometimes, like I said, to his detriment, to the detriment of the team around him. This guy's getting 3 yards a carry. He gets injured. Guy comes in, gets 5.5, and
right.
5.5 guy gets benched the second that guy's back. It just drives me freaking batty. And so for him to do that, especially for a quarterback that it seems like for all accounts that he hates in Mason Rudolph,
exactly,
it was just a really awkward situation. It's a really awkward situation. Also, someone in the chat mentioned that Kenny was hurt a lot. Yeah, he was. That also probably doesn't help. You probably don't feel a whole lot of confidence in your quarterback every time you take a big hit. You're like, oh, don't get hurt. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We
didn't have that for years. Like, Ben always played, yes, his last years where he was made of glass. Yes, people are always going to remind us of those. But no, seriously, for a large chunk of Ben's career, that dude was an Iron Man. He was the Brett Favre of his era, where he was just... I think that they said that Ben's doctor had to get an entire filing cabinet to just separate Ben's injuries.
Oh, I mean, he was undoubtedly tough, but I'm not going to say he was Brett Favre. Ben did usually miss a couple games. I mean, that's, Ben probably didn't play 16 games. Yeah, he didn't play 16 games probably most years, but I agree with your point. I just think, like, it, just reading between the lines and knowing what I know about Tomlin, to me, I thought they had lost faith in Pickett at that point. I think that Tomlin probably knew there was no coming back from that for him, and Do you think that by the end that that the players had no belief in Pickett?
That's typically I won't say only time, but that's like the primary time where Tomlin takes action is whenever the locker room has something to say about it.
Right.
I think that, like, you notice that he didn't bench Mitch Trubisky for Kenny Pickett until Deontay Johnson punched him in the face. I mean, he's really
That's a great soundbite.
So I think Freyd's watching right now. Hopefully that gets put into the mix at some point. But no, that's when he takes action, is when action is taken, so to speak.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Yeah. No,
I don't know, man. I guess we're gonna have to see what happens. I mean, like, speaking of which, can we mention Deontay Johnson? Like, we still haven't mentioned Deontay Johnson.
I know the quarterback thing is just so amazing to me, but we'll weave back to it. Yeah, Deontay. He didn't want to be here. Simple as that. I knew that. I could tell that there was smoke there because, again, speaking to the way agents, feed out information, you started to see a couple tweets from a couple sources where you're like, oh, yeah, he's probably, asking out. And I thought maybe he'd be like a during the draft kind of trade, but, I guess they wanted to know what they were playing with during free agency. And I think they owed him a roster bonus on Friday. So, shipped him out. What's your reaction? I decent player, but for me, no love lost. Have fun.
Yeah, I can tell you the exact time that I lost all confidence in DJ, and that was when he walked away from the fumble.
Yeah.
I couldn't get over that, and I still can't. That
Mine was always mine was the fumble against the Chiefs where no one even touched him. He just dropped it.
Oh yeah. Man, that's the thing is, like, I think one time on the show, even like a couple months ago, I made some dropson joke, and somebody, actually, he has like one of the lowest drop rates in the NFL. I'm like, okay, all right.
Remember the time they had to remember the time this season when they had to review a play, and we were hoping that he dropped it so that it wouldn't have been a fumble.
Yeah. Why does that happen with him at least like twice a year?
He's one of those guys that's he's not as good. He's not better than the sum of his parts. Hines Ward is a guy who is better than the sum of his parts. Deontay Johnson is a guy who's way worse than the sum of his parts.
You son of a bitch. That was my exact comparison. That was going to be my exact point, and that was the example I was going to use with Hines Ward. So, fair enough. I agree.
Yeah.
Oh man, what the hell? No, but it's a DJ. He. I think they said that he gets like one of the most like the highest separation rates, or he has one.
Yeah, he's a great route runner, no doubt.
I mean, he's so damn good at what he does. It's just, if he could get his mental game right.
Yeah, he tried hard, I think. But I always thought he was a bit pouty, and I thought he was the kind of guy, you see this in basketball a lot more than football, I think. Guys who you're having a bad night and you let it get to you, and I think he was kind of one of those guys that would happen, and you could see it. And I didn't think, much like Kenny Pickett wasn't good enough to be a malcontent, I didn't think Deontay Johnson was good enough to make $12 million and be a malcontent. He's a good player, but he's replaceable. There are Deontay Johnsons out there. I for one won't miss him. I never had much faith in him, to be honest with you.
He's like Julian Edelman with half the work ethic and without the PED busts.
Yes. But did they miss him on the field? Right? I mean, he's a good player. He might not be a great player, but he's definitely a good player.
If there is any position, if there is literally any one single position on the Steelers that I'll shrug my shoulders and go, they'll figure it out, it'll be wide receiver.
Yeah, that's fair.
Even
but
our receivers, I know our receivers in recent years haven't been the best, but they've all at least had their moments of, what's the word? Not to shine, but they've had their moments where they can show what they can do. I think like Chase Claypool in his first ever start against the Eagles, he had 4 touchdowns. Even if their careers don't wind up well, they usually have moments where you at least see their talent come through.
That's true. Claypool continues to be such a... I never anticipated that. I just to go from where he was as a rookie to being essentially a washout is
A meme.
it's wild. It's really wild. Deontay. Yeah, I mean, I think it's again like Pickett. I think it's probably better for both sides to have a new start. I just really wonder what they're going to do to replace him. I know they signed Van Jefferson, who to me is just like a depth piece, and they specifically frame this as saying he's a depth piece. So I think they're very much still looking at Tyler Boyd. I think that they're in play for him, but I think he probably has other suitors on the table. But I would like that. I'm a fan of Tyler Boyd. I always have been. You know, I don't know how much it moves the needle, but if you think that Russell Wilson is going to be able to sort of unlock George Pickens as a superstar, I'm okay with Tyler Boyd being your number 2 option. You know, it's reliable.
I still believe that Pat Freiermuth is at worst a top 10 tight end in the NFL. That
if he can stay on the field.
Well, if he can stay on the field and if he can get the fucking ball, which actually, according to like people that have had Arthur Smith be their offensive coordinator and whatnot, he uses the backup tight end way more than the primary tight end. Like when we signed Arthur Smith, like all the comments were like Darnell Washington about to go off. And so that'll be fun to see. I'll enjoy how that plays out. But Pat Freiermuth, man, on his own, I mean, he has that same thing that you and I have talked about a million times with like Jason Witten and Heath Miller, where he just takes 2 steps and he's just wide open and 10 yards away from everybody. And you're like, how does he do that? I love it. I love Pat Freiermuth, and I think that incorporating him as well into this, like, if we're just going with this hypothetical offense, let's say we pick up Tyler Boyd, like you said. I mean, I like Tyler Boyd a lot too, which really hurts because he's a fucking he's a Bengal, and I detest the Bengals in every way, shape, and form. More so in the Vontaze Burfict days, because I do like Joe Burrow, which is a weird juxtaposition to be in, where I like Joe Burrow, but I want him to fail because he's the captain of my least favorite team. But I do have to say, though, that like on this imaginary offense that contains George Pickens, Tyler Boyd, Van Jefferson, who at least is a good prospect who maybe we can pull some stuff out of, Pat Freiermuth, Najee Harris, Jalen Warren, and did I mention Russell Wilson? Like, this is not a bad offense on paper. It's just will it translate, especially in an offensively anorexic town like Pittsburgh.
Yeah, well, I think the interesting thing, it's going to be, even though the pieces are different, you know, you replace Matt Canada and Kenny Pickett with Art Smith and Russell Wilson, but the question's still the same. It's the exact same thing as the last 2 years, and the question is, what are you going to get out of the last 3 or 4 years, really, which is, what are you going to get out of the OC, and what are you going to get out of the quarterback? Like, that's really what it is. If you get decent OC, you know, potential out of Arthur Smith, which I think, you know, I didn't love that signing, but I didn't hate it. I think it makes some sense. It
was the most Steelers signing ever, wasn't it?
It was, but it's a little, at least it's a little different, and at least it's like kind of makes sense. I like having former head coaches, even if they weren't particularly successful head coaches. I think that's a good play.
I do want to mention, though, that Arthur Smith, it's like become a meme. I don't know if you've heard it, but that Arthur Smith like tries too hard to trick people. That like he almost doesn't have bread and butter because he's constantly just misdirecting and shuffling the deck, so to speak. And I'll take that over the predictable hell that our offense has been in for the past 5+ years. I'll take it. Let's just see where it goes.
Listen, I have never seen an offensive coordinator. I mean, I was really trying to think about this last year. I've never seen an offensive coordinator more openly derided in like public conversation, like literally like on ESPN, than I saw Matt Canada. Like it was like a joke. Like people would literally, like Dan Orlovsky and those kind of people would just literally be like, this is a joke. This is not an NFL offense. And you never see that. Because those people aren't talking about coordinators. They're not talking about schemes. They're tweeting about they're,
coordinators.
talking about who's going to sign where, and Sean Payton said this and Mike Tomlin said that, like, and so, Canada was clearly a pretty bad offensive coordinator. I think Art Smith has done some good stuff on paper with the Titans a few years ago, and the Falcons, for what it was, they weren't a joke. I know that a lot of fantasy football players had problems with them because they didn't think that they were, getting enough targets to their favorite players or whatever. But, some people just aren't a head coach. That's the reality. Dick LeBeau was not a good head coach. And no one remembers what the Bengals defense was like when Dick LeBeau was the head coach. But they remember what the Steelers D was like when he was the D coordinator, right?
Yeah, you're right. Sorry.
Okay.
A little bit of a delay going on. Yeah, but Vic Fangio wasn't a very good head coach for the Broncos. I think that he was 7-10 3 years in a row. But they also had like a top 5 defense every single year because it's Vic frickin' Fangio. So you never know with stuff like that. I mean, some people, that's just the better position they find themselves in, to your point. Arthur Smith, I mean, I feel like there was a universe where last year the Falcons finished first. I really think that they left a lot of their best football on the field last year, but maybe that's just me being
well, they would have had to win one more game to win the division. I think the Bucks probably won it at like 9-8 or whatever.
Yeah, like I was gonna say, it wouldn't have been the greatest division title of all time, but like I was, the fact that I think that they were 4th in the division last year, like just because of like that one lot, I think it looked a little worse on paper for Arthur than it probably should have. But, I guess we'll see what happens with him, man. I mean, like from what I heard, wide zone is like his bread and butter. He loves play action. He loves motion. He loves misdirection. But then again, we heard all this same shit from a certain man named Mr. Matthew Canada, and we didn't see much of anything. So I mean, who knows? I think that this is probably going to sound like a black pill moment, and I'm not trying to make it seem that way. I'm just saying that I think that this is the juxtaposition that Steeler fans find themselves in with our offense. If our offense, okay, Todd Haley's offense looked kind of different, and it was because we had Ben Roethlisberger providing a lot of input into it and whatnot. But then once we got Randy Finkner, the offense really didn't change. Then we got Matt Canada, and the offense didn't really change. And so if we get Arthur Smith and the offense doesn't really change yet again, I think we know what the call. If we're still run passing our way like into the second half of the year and whatnot, I think that it's pretty clear like where we're going to be sitting, as long as certain other people in certain other positions are there.
Yeah, well, I mean, hey, you have to give them credit in that. I don't think that that's going to be the case. It can't be the case because who even left is to do that? Like they changed the quarterback's coach, they changed the wide receivers coach, they changed the offensive coordinator, and they changed the quarterback, and they changed wide receiver 1. So Tomlin. Like, yeah, well, yeah, but
I'm just saying, like, I worry that we are getting into a point in Tomlin's tenure where he's worried about playing Tomlin ball.
Yeah.
To the detriment of our team. We've done that the last couple of years. We played Tomlin ball down 21 points to the Buffalo Bills in the playoffs. Like, that's just what we do.
Yeah, I hear all that. And I was out here criticizing him last year too because I thought the collapse was terrible, and I still think it was. But I gotta give credit. Like, I think that that 7-7 moment, I think it was a come to Jesus moment for the whole org. I really do. Like, I think that Tomlin showed change and growth in that last chunk of the season. And I think that this offseason I think has proven that. I think that they are changing. I mean, Patrick Queen is going to be probably a captain on the defense. He might not be just technically because Cam and TJ and, but I mean, he's essentially going to be a captain on this defense. If it goes like the way you think it's going to go, he's going to be the guy with the green dot. He's going to be playing every down, and he's still only 24 years old. And you got him locked up for 3 years.
Middle linebackers usually are green dot.
So you got that, right? Which I never understood. Why don't they just put, even on offense, why doesn't everybody just have the headset? It doesn't make any sense. Why do we have to huddle if they could just have everyone have the headset? I've never really understood why it has to be to one person and then they have to say it. Why?
I have no idea. I have no. Well, maybe there's that element of I guess the game of telephone. Maybe because back in those days you had to run to the sideline
Yeah,
and
but
get
who
the
gives a
message
shit?
on.
What's that have to
I don't
do with
know.
anything?
Tradition? I don't know.
It could cut 10 seconds out of every play cycle. They wouldn't have to go stand in a circle and talk to each other. It's so stupid.
Yes, but then football players would have to actually do cardio, and that would be a real problem once they had to do that.
Stupid.
I'm sorry, I just have to mention there's a lot of
No, it's just something I've been thinking about lately.
Neither do I.
Like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you say, oh, the tech's not there, it's hard, radios, whatever. But nowadays, it's like, what the hell? Just put the fucking speaker in everybody's headset. What it would cost 25 cents. What? Like what?
I will say that Belichick took full use of that. He loved jamming headsets back in his day.
Yeah. Yeah, but so my point is like, they brought in Patrick Queen, which I thought was, out of the ordinary for them. And I thought really smart pickup. We haven't really talked about him. I think he changes. For me, I'm hyped on the defense. I think you gotta, get another corner. You got to figure out what's going to happen at that corner 2 position. And I think some depth on the D line possibly, but otherwise I'm pretty jazzed about where the defense is headed into the season. If they can stay healthy, I think they're a good unit. Patrick Queen, I find it an upgrade even if you told me Cole Holcomb and Quan Alexander were totally healthy and going to start week 1. Like, I still would think that would be an upgrade. I mean, by far, he's like an all-pro caliber player. So, plus he's going to be rocking a single digit, which I love to see.
I don't know if this comparison necessarily translates, but in my mind, Patrick Queen is what Devin Bush should have been.
Yeah, pretty much.
Sense, but
no, he's pretty much. Yeah.
And so it's good that we're gonna get a little bit of because like honestly, when we had Quan, I think Quan went down for the year pretty quickly, and I know Cole went down like probably halfway through. But like people are gonna talk shit about our linebacking core last year, but honestly, it wasn't as bad as it was in recent years. I actually thought it was probably like a middle of the pack linebacking core, which is actually like a huge improvement for us a lot of times. Our defense, we talked about like these last couple of years and having not been good. And the ironic thing is we're just so used to elite defenses that whenever we're ranked, I think it was like 15th, I think. I don't know if it was last year or the year before, but it was something like that. We've been in the teens as of late as a defense. And that's just seen as really bad play for us because we're just so used to elite D play. But it's also with the amount of defensive talent we have, and now with Patrick Queen in the mix as well, we can't not be a top 5 unit. I think like with the Ravens being as good of a defensive unit as they admittedly are, and for a lot of these teams that have really good D coordinators, we're going to have a good defense, especially if we're going to be able to, like the Baltimore Ravens being able to hold Patrick Mahomes to 17 points in that game, and Lamar still losing. For one, was a huge indictment of Lamar. I don't care what anyone says.
Totally agree.
But it's also just the fact that you need to be able to stop these teams. Like the fact that like the last number of times, well, anytime Patrick Mahomes has played us, he's put up like 40 points, like at least. So you need a defense to be able to stop these kinds of things. We can't be bleeding like yards and bleeding points like we have, and I'm just not sure that we're going to be able to do that. I hope I'm wrong though.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the defense, I mean, for me, I thought the defense last year was pretty solid. I didn't think it was spectacular because they didn't really, I don't think they forced I can't recall exactly at this point. I mean, it's been, like I said, I'm in my off-season cave, so I don't remember everything off the top of my head right now. But I think that they, I don't think they were turning it over as much. I didn't think that they had like the splash plays quite as much as they did in some of their, like 19, 20, that kind of stuff. But I did think they were solid, but I think that, what I always said was I think they still ended up being in the top 10 for most rankings, like yards and points and stuff. And second half of the year, especially, they kept them in so many games, and I thought, made a big difference, especially once Mason came in. And you saw once Rudolph came in and was just doing, like I said, it's not, everybody's going to look at the 75-yard touchdown, the 80, or he had like an 85-yard touchdown, whatever it was. And they're going to look at the big plays and all that. But really, it was, again, those 10-yard, 12-yard, 7-yard. It was just moving the offense. And that was the problem with Trubisky and Pickett was it wasn't just that they weren't scoring. Nobody scores on every drive. Patrick Mahomes punts the ball once in a while. But it's that they just weren't getting, like, a first down, 2 first downs. They just weren't. They were going out and they were running 3 plays. and they were punting it back and just doing nothing, giving the defense no break, not helping with average starting field position at all. Forget about the dog shit punter they've had the last couple of years. I don't know why they didn't just keep Brad Wing. It just, it all worked out to be a situation that was not conducive to playing good defense for a full game because those dudes were tired, man. They didn't have any depth. Cam Hayward was playing on one leg, and it was a lot to ask for like a TJ Watt, and it's a testament to him how dominant he is that he still did it. He still was dominant and still was amazing last year. And they were asking him to do that all day, every day. It's a lot. And you got to have an offense that can keep you on schedule. And I think, what they're trying to build is an offense that can do that. And I give them a lot of credit because you do not have forever left with Cam Hayward and TJ Watt and Minkah Fitzpatrick. It's time to shit or get off the pot.
I think that... Okay, first, I love that analogy. That's hilarious. It's very, very apropos right now. But I also have to say, though, that, I remember that Mike Tomlin recently made some kind of comment, maybe it was a month or two ago, but it was relatively recently, and he brought up Marquise Pouncey and how that his greatest professional regret as a coach was that he couldn't get Marquise Pouncey a ring. And then I remember hearing him mention Cam Hayward in kind of the same breath. And it's like, I don't know, Cam doesn't have a lot longer, at least at a high level. I mean, he's still at a relatively high level. I don't want to say that he's fallen off because he hasn't at all. But he's getting to that point, right? He's losing a step or two. And I think that he's a guy that a lot of people in the locker room want to rally behind and get a ring for before he decides to hang it up. And I mean, he's got so much stuff going on behind the scenes now. He does his charity work and he does his podcast and all this other stuff. God bless him. And, there's not a lot of good people in high-level sports, and he's genuinely a good person from what I've heard. And I want to see him get a ring before it's all said and done.
Walter Payton Man of the Year, shout out.
Yeah.
That was awesome. I was so hyped about that. I didn't talk about that really on the air, but that was, for me, awesome, man. That award means a lot. I think that's really cool. I can't wait to see him with the patch. And now the Steelers are going to have two of those guys because Wilson is also a former winner.
Really?
Yeah.
God bless him. I don't know, man. This team is so weird because I feel like but I feel like I say this every year where I say that 7-10, 8-8-1, or 12-4-1 or whatever the hell. I feel like all of those are equally as likely.
Right.
And that's the thing. You just never know going into it. I feel like first round we should probably go center. Would you agree with me on that?
I mean, it depends on what's available. Really, I think that a lot of things are in play. We haven't even touched on some of the other stuff going around about Justin Fields, and these other quarterback situations. And I think it's kind of interesting. And, would I be interested in that flyer for the pick that we got back for Kenny Pickett? Yeah, I probably would, to be honest with you. I think it'd be a smart play. But I think that you if that doesn't happen imminently, you're going to see what happens in the draft, and the Steelers, depending on how the quarterbacks shake out, I think that they're going to be off the board pretty quick. So I don't think they're going to be in that market because, don't get me wrong, Wilson signed a 1-year deal and he's going to be 36 years old. So I still think quarterback is a need. I don't think we have that position solved for the future. I think we might have it solved for a year or two, but do I still want to get my Jordan Love in place? Yeah, I do. But yeah, I think center is a need, but you can usually get a center in the second round. Most of the good centers are middle second round picks. So, and I think there's a few this year. Yeah. So I think that center is a need. But I still believe, even if they get Tyler Boyd, to me, I'm still thinking receiver. If you can get a really talented cat there, I think could be a need. And I think corner is still something that I have questions about. And I think if you're really trying to build a lockdown team, you can't just have Joey Porter because that'll limit how much he can do. You need him a running mate, and that people don't remember the other guy playing opposite Deion Sanders or Richard Sherman or whatever, but those guys have to be good too. And they don't have that right now. So I would say any of those positions for me are in play.
Yeah, I don't know if I really disagree with any of that. I think that we're going to go after corner at some point. That's probably true. I didn't really think about the fact that a lot of the centers go in the second round. So that's actually probably true. So if that's the case, you think that they go wide receiver in the first round?
Yeah, if there's a guy that they like there and they think is talented, yeah, I think you need to start building that room. I think that they haven't gotten much slack for that because they have such a history of building receivers. But I don't think that they've done a great job in the post Antonio Brown world of like really having a team, because yes, they have two good players and Deontay, not anymore, but they did have Deontay and George Pickens. But it's not like, I mean, remember back in the day, I mean, I was just talking to somebody about 2010 the other day, they had Antonio Brown, Emmanuel Sanders, Hines Ward, Mike Wallace. Like, you didn't know what those guys were going to be, but still you could see like, okay, this is a room. They put a 3rd round draft pick on Sanders. Like, they're trying to build a room here. And I think the Steelers haven't done a good job of that. And I think it's part of what's limited what they can do offensively. You got to have more guys. You got to have more. Yeah, I would probably say if I had to put odds on it, I think it's probably most likely that they take a wide receiver, unless they make a deal, unless they were to get really crazy and trade for somebody. I don't know how much stock you put into it, but I've seen that they've been sniffing around one Mr. Deebo Samuel, which would be pretty bizarre and out of the ordinary, but I'd take that all day, every day.
I will say that, like, I didn't want to let that Justin Fields comment completely go unchecked.
Go for it.
God, he might be one of the worst quarterbacks I've seen in years. I want no parts of him on.
And you
Steelers.
Just watched Kenny Pickett play for 2 years.
I would watch Kenny Pickett play for the next 10 before I would watch. Justin.
Oh my God. No.
Oh, he is so bad. He's so bad. He can't read defenses. He gets sacked all the time. He has no pocket presence. He fumbles all the time. He doesn't even run for that many yards. He doesn't score all that much, and he can't throw. Why would
he
you
does
like
run?
him?
He does run for. He ran for 1,000 yards year before last. I
was gonna say. I was like
even 700 as a quarterback, and he missed a bunch of games last year. You can't say he can't run. He is a dynamic running quarterback. That's just not true. Like I'm not gonna. I've been
not make up for his lack of ability.
Okay, that's fair. If you want to say that, that's fair. But you can't say he can't run. He is a dynamic. Okay, hear me out as the 5-star sirens kick in. Yeah. I have been on the record, just like Russell Wilson, of absolutely hating Justin Fields and thinking he sucks. I'm not taking that back. My friend tried to call me out for that yesterday. I'm not taking that back. What I am saying though is you've seen that his price is next to nothing. No one wants him. Chicago has no leverage because everybody knows they have to get rid of him because they're going to draft Caleb Williams and they don't want that situation, so they got to get rid of him. Now, if you say that the cost for Kenny Pickett is a mid-round, draft swap, and the cost, I think, for Sam Howell, who, was not great last year, but I think showed some potential. He threw a shitload of yards and touchdowns, right? Wasn't he close to leading the league in passing yards? I know they were throwing it a ton, but
who are you talking about?
Sam Howell.
He was like he had like most turnovers in fairness, but he also had like most yards or second most.
Yeah,
yards,
I mean, what did he throw for last? What did he throw for last year? I thought for sure he was going to be the quarterback of the future there. I mean,
shout out to Eric Bieniemy. Like, he really wanted to leave Kansas City and prove that he was a better coach than just Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. And I mean, he turned Sam Howell into one of the biggest. I guess you could just say one of the biggest passers in the league. I mean, again, I know he had a lot of turnovers.
Yeah,
I mean,
and they already moved on from both of them, which says a lot about Washington.
Really? I didn't hear about that.
Oh, you didn't know Howell got traded?
I know Howell got traded. I didn't know they lost Bieniemy too.
Yeah, he signed to be an OC for UCLA or something.
That's a missed opportunity.
Well, because they brought in the new coach and all that, so
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, well, no, how, like, I mean, yeah, he did turn it over a ton, but he threw for 4,000 yards just about and 21 touchdowns last year, and I think he missed a few games or got benched or whatever. So, but either way, my point is, I think he only went for a third-round pick, right? So this is a guy who's shown he can sling it in the NFL, and he, after 1 year of playing, got shipped off for next to nothing. So if the cost is that low for Justin Fields, I don't think that there are really any other logical suitors in play. I just no. I don't want two old guys, because then you're in a scenario where you could end up playing your third stringer real quick. I'm not about that. You need at least one guy that's in his physical prime that could get beaten up a little bit. I think I just think, like, I've been thinking about, like, if they were to bring him in, right? He's got the 1 year of his rookie deal. They wouldn't take the option, because the option would be like $20 million. They're not doing that without knowing. But still, okay, he's a guy we know Tomlin loves. He was enamored with him in the draft process. You bring him in, he sits behind Mr. Unlimited for a year, takes some reps in practice, Wednesday days off, whatever. And he gets to learn, he gets to grow, much like Pickett. He gets a change of scenery, no pressure, just there, just working, getting better in the room. You get to see him up close, and you have him for a backup. He fits the mold of what Wilson does. I mean, whether you think he's great or not, he's still, you could see they're the same type of quarterback. They could run, they could kind of do the bootleg thing, strong arm. He's backup if you need him. And what I like is, how about a little bit of like rookie Lamar Jackson gadget type stuff? Okay, like that's not. Think about a 3rd and 2 package where you got Justin Fields, Najee Harris, and Jalen Warren in the backfield. You're gonna tell me that's not? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I could get on board with Dobbs. For sure. But
that's basically what he was doing, right?
Yeah.
He was just the gadget guy.
But like, you're gonna tell me you can't see where, like, for like an Arthur Smith, you're like, I could kind of see, because you're not like it's not your knees you're worried about. You know what I mean? He's not your draft pick. He's like kind of like when they brought in Dwayne Haskins, where you're like, okay, well, if he, improves, it's great, and if he doesn't, who gives a shit? We didn't, I mean, yeah, in this case you'd be giving up something of a draft pick for him, but I don't think it'd be a whole heck of a lot. And then, then you got, at least you're giving yourself options for the next year, because then this year the option was you go into the offseason and we say, oh man, they got to bring Mason back. And I'm sitting here thinking, oh my God, it's going to be another year of Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph. That's just hell. It's purgatory. Same thing every year. It's, insanity.
Yeah.
But at least then, okay, you say, well, you get to this, then you see how Wilson plays. If he plays really good, you say, all right, and you don't think he's lost a step, you bring him back. He'll want to come back. He's going to buy a house. I heard he's buying a house. So, like, I think he thinks, like, he might have a future here. He's got kids. I don't think he wants to move every single year. So you bring him back. If he's terrible and he looks washed up, then you've had a year to look at Justin Fields up close, and you say, okay, you know what? We think after what he did last year and what he showed us, that he should be our starting quarterback and we should move forward with him. And then you give him a cheap deal. I mean, he'd already have been in the room. He'll already know Tomlin. It's not like another year of him sitting on the bench is going to raise his stock across the league. It's going to be another year, another 2 years of rookie quarterbacks coming in the league. I mean, the price would be cheap. It gives you an option. And then if they both suck, you draft somebody then. I don't know. I don't think it's crazy.
No, like, so everything you just said is totally reasonable. I don't even really disagree with you on any of that. Here's basically my whole point of contention with Justin Fields, and here's why I would much rather just draft a guy this draft, like, 2nd rounder, 3rd rounder, 5th rounder. Who gives a shit? Just do something.
They'd probably do that anyway. I think they'll probably, yeah.
Draft a Sam Howell kind of guy who he was taken in the 5th round, if I'm not mistaken. So I mean, with a good offensive mind, you can take a raw prospect and develop into something half decent at least. Here's my whole point of contention with Justin Fields. That guy is a stormtrooper. He is like, okay, so Merrill Hodge has this great like breakdown And I would really encourage anybody to check it out. It was either on Ben's podcast or it might be just like some clip you can find on YouTube Shorts or TikTok before it gets banned. And it's what he's doing. And he's breaking down like quarterback prospects and like the things that, I think he might be talking about like Johnny Manziel and things like that. But he was saying like, does he throw the receiver open or does he throw it up to him and hope he catches it? Like, does he play to the strengths of his defense or does he just find the open guy whenever he can? He was asking a lot of these questions. Then a big thing that he talked about was accuracy. And he goes, you cannot fix a quarterback's accuracy. You're either accurate or you're not. People think you can fix accuracy. It's never, ever been fixed. Either you're accurate or you're not. And generally speaking, like I know you can fix things, you can kind of like adjust mechanics and whatnot, but normally speaking, like if someone's inaccurate, they don't really develop accuracy. That's not something we see a lot. And Justin Fields is a stormtrooper. I will repeat that. That man cannot hit a target to save his life with a gun pointed at his head. And I just want no part of that. I see every time that we play against him. Do you remember like last year, the year before, whatever it is, whenever we played against Fields and we were like memeing the fact that he just couldn't hit anybody and kept throwing picks? He just, the guy, I don't care how much development, I don't care what system you put him under. There are just guys that cannot hit the open target. And that is, well, he can hit an open target, but he can't make NFL caliber throws a lot of times. I think Barry McCockiner was making jokes that it was like, yeah, he has like 2 good plays a game and like 28 bad ones.
Yeah,
So
no,
I want no part of him.
Listen, I'm not going to sit here and give some detailed analysis of why I think Justin Fields can be fixed. I don't know. And yeah, I just, I guess my whole ethos is just full steam ahead on fuck it. I called the Steelers, I called the Steelers out last year in the collapse when I was being really nihilistic and saying that like, teams like the Eagles and the Chiefs and all these kind of teams, they're not afraid to move on from things and they're not afraid to take big swings. And I mean, shit, I'll give the Eagles credit for acquiring Kenny Pickett. Like, I actually think that like, it's probably not a bad move. If I was somebody else, I'd be like, yeah, I'll take for nothing. Yeah, I'll take him. Like, he's not crap and he's still in his physical prime and he could be a backup quarterback and maybe he plays for 4 games. Maybe Jalen Hurts gets hurt and he plays a couple games and he looks really good and you could ship him for a 2nd round pick. That's what smart teams are doing. That's what the Niners, that's what the Eagles are doing now. They're making investments that aren't inherently about the team on the field. They're about the team as a whole. That's why the 49ers keep getting 10 million compensation picks and everybody's freaking out about it because they hire guys. There's, you get comp picks for like when you hire like, diversity candidates and all these kinds of things, these different positions and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's a good thing. And they're not abusing it. They're just playing by the rules. And I think more teams should be doing that. I would take a couple extra 4th or 5th round picks, wouldn't you? It's never a bad thing. Why not?
No. And use those 4th and 5th round picks and maybe get a couple of them and upgrade to a fucking 3rd round pick.
So it's going to be interesting. I mean, we'll see what they're going to do. Do I think it's like incredibly likely that they go out and make a deal for Fields? No, but I think it does. I think there's logic you could follow there that makes it make some sense. I just don't know that he has that big of a market, and I think Chicago's got their back against the wall. I think they probably realize if they don't trade him by the draft, like what are they going to get for him? Literally, they're going to have no leverage.
I retweeted something a couple days ago where the Bears say to the Steelers, we'll give you Justin Fields for a 2nd rounder, and the Steelers were like, we'll give you a 6th and an 8th.
Yes. Yeah. No, I mean, I think it could be honestly, I think it could be a 4th. Like a 4th and something else. Like I'm not
offering him. I'm offering him a 7th. That's it.
No way. They're not going to do him for that. So, but the
project is just so massive.
Yeah, that's fair. But I think to me, and I like what I don't want to look over what I said before. Like I still think like I do believe in what I said about him as a gadget player. Like I think it makes him a better team this year. You don't want a 36-year-old quarterback taking those option plays on 3rd down. Like, give me a guy like that, man. But you're right. They'll probably sign Josh Dobbs.
That actually, like, you see, I kind of brought it up as a joke, but like,
no, it occurred to me.
It might actually happen. Like, I kind of hope so. Like, Dobbsy went out, made his money, became a meme, the Pastronaut and all that. God bless him. I hope he comes to the Steelers again.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I wouldn't be surprised at that at all. I think it makes a lot of sense, actually.
No, and Frayne mentions he's complaining in the chat, and I don't blame him. He's complaining about Mason Rudolph, and he's like, I'm going to be 80 years old complaining about how the Steelers fumbled Mason Rudolph. He's like, we could have had 8 years of like solid backup quarterback play, and they're like, no, we'll just let you go to the Titans for $4 million for no reason. I'm like, I kind of agree with him.
I mean, yeah, but again, I just think, much like last year, it's just
come back.
Yeah, he didn't find a job last year, and I think that this year clearly it showed. They didn't offer him anything. I guarantee you, the Steelers said they wanted to keep him, and they talked to him. So, what with the market the way it is now, what they offer him? $2 million? No way. They must. I guarantee you, they offered the same or even slightly more than Tennessee did. I bet you he just didn't want to come back. I think because I was surprised. I thought for sure he'd get. Two for 10, two for 11, something like that somewhere. I mean, good backup quarterbacks making $7 million sometimes now. I mean, it's not,
money.
Yeah, I thought he was gonna get something, but 1 year for 3.5. I mean, that for 6-7 year guy, that's nothing. That's barely above, minimum. So I think it's evident that he didn't want to come back.
No, I don't blame him.
Oh yeah, it's hard to blame him, right?
No, and I mean it's another. Speaking of guys that left, and I don't blame. We're talking about how there was like little stability in the wide receiver position, and we kind of got off the topic, and I forgot to mention this, but I did want to circle back to it real quick. Is that speaking of stability and just having a guy that you could rely upon while you build the rest of the core around it, I'm still salty that we lost Juju Smith-Schuster.
Yeah,
and
me
I know
too.
That wasn't the front office's fault. I know that it was pretty much, I would say, almost solely because of the fan base and because Ben left. Probably those two things almost exclusively, I would say. Because I know we offered him pretty much what the Chiefs offered him, but he just didn't want to come back, and I don't fucking blame him one bit.
Yeah, he went and got a Super Bowl.
Yeah, he did win a Super Bowl. He got to play with Patrick Mahomes. I mean, God bless him. I mean, you even showed that even past the injuries and whatnot, here I go again comparing him to Hines Ward, but he's a guy that is just reliable and makes the catch and makes a lot of contested catches and knows where the first down marker is, and he's a guy that you can build your wide receiver core around. We could have had him for another when he left, I'm saying, not from now, but when he left, we could have had him for another 4 to 6 years or so, given him a halfway decent deal that made him probably middle to top middle of the wide receiver market. He probably would, if the fan base and if these other factors weren't in play, he probably would have taken it, and we would have had good receiver play for a number of years. And no, instead he gets shipped off, and now he's just been passed around teams like a joint at a Snoop Dogg concert.
Oh, yeah. To the person in the chat asking if we're ignoring them, he's talking about DK reported blah blah blah, that Mason waited for an offer that never came. Yeah, I mean, yeah, okay. I don't know. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. I'm not ignoring you. For one, I kind of discount anything DK says because I don't really like DK as a person. So I'll just be honest about that. The reports about his workplace are gross. So I kind of pay no mind to him and have him blocked on every social app. So, that's just my opinion. But okay, maybe that's the case, and that's fine, and they didn't want him. That's fine too. I said that earlier in the chat. I think that, it's possible if they're all in on some sort of Art Smith, Russell Wilson kind of combination, that they just wanted a different type of quarterback, and that's fair, and that's why I think Justin Fields or Josh Dobbs would make some sense. To me, the Mason Rudolph thing is not that big of a deal. It's if he wants to be elsewhere, good for him. People got to remember that's the thing with the backup quarterback is there's a fit element there, you could see it. Mason Rudolph and Will Levis are the same type of quarterback, right? Strong arm, pocket passer kind of guys. You want to have that so that there's continuity, Mitchell Trubisky and Kenny Pickett, for better or worse, were similar types of players. And by that, I mean, they both fucking suck. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm not, though. They both do suck. But you know what I mean?
Every day over Mitch.
Roll out, first read type of, you know what I mean? They're the same type of players. We talked about them both. I saw them both as guys that were probably like, I thought baseball first guys, that probably were playing like second base in like high school. That's kind of just how I saw them.
Tiny pitching motion when they throw.
Right. Yeah, so I mean, the Rudolph thing for me is kind of neither here nor there. I don't really care. If they acquire somebody, a veteran, then I think they'll probably draft a quarterback like a 5th round kind of thing or whatever. And if they don't, then I think they got to draft one in the first 3 rounds, somebody that could be an actual player. Because they do have to start figuring out the future of that position. Because either way, Russell Wilson is a 1 or 2 year stopgap, most likely.
You want to know what's screwed up is that until Russell Wilson proves that he still has something left in the tank, which he very well might. I'm not discrediting him. I'm saying until he proves that, our best quarterback in the last 5 years of the Pittsburgh Steelers has been Mason Rudolph.
True.
5 years, almost half a decade of quarterback play, and Mason Rudolph has still outperformed everybody else.
Yeah. We
are so screwed.
Who knows? Wilson might be good, man.
We'll see what happens. Maybe.
I'm more interested in this than I am whatever that was going to be, because I'm telling you, it was going to be a disaster. I mean, it when you really think about it, it makes a lot of sense that they moved on from Pickett. When it first hit me, it was shocking, but unpacking it now and kind of going back to the, everybody's kind of gone back to that whole not dressing to be a backup thing in Seattle. And that I thought at the time was interesting because you were seeing some conflicting reporting about that. But like anything where there's smoke, there's probably some fire. And between that and the stuff they planted, I meant to even bring this up on the air, but the Jerry Dulac article in the Post-Gazette talking about trading Pickett, to me was just, I thought, really strongly worded and interesting. Let me see if I can find the section I want to talk here.
While you're pulling that up, to your point, it was something that, with Kenny Pickett, it seemed like there was starting to be more and more smoke progressively. Mm-hmm. I also you know what? I'm not going to mention that again. Never mind. But I will say that whether it's the not dressing to be a backup thing in Seattle, or whether it's the Russell Wilson signing, it just felt like there kept being more and more things kept under wraps. And the thing about this era is you just cannot keep things under wraps. Yeah. I guess I'm learning the more and more is that if you hear something of it, I heard a report that Deontay Johnson and Mitch Trubisky got into a fight, and then I heard that it wasn't true, and I'm like, I'm willing to bet they got into a fight. You hear that Kenny Pickett was pissed off and wanted a trade, and then immediately after I heard reports that wasn't true, and then of course you hear the reports that he got traded. So I'm starting to think that when there is smoke, there's almost certainly fire. That just seems to be with these kind of reports with sports and whatnot.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a kernel of truth, because even if it's not inherently true, it's still okay, there's a reason somebody said that, I just think, that this stuff, the Dulac tweet, when that thing first broke, Steelers made the move because of the way Pickett was poorly handling the arrival of Russell Wilson, according to sources. That came on the heels of Pickett's behavior last season when he refused to dress as the emergency 3rd quarterback in Seattle in Week 17. So to me, those are the things that you look at and you say, okay, there's an opinion here that is coming out that he just wasn't seen as that kind of a guy. And I thought, for me, I thought I didn't read that much into the words because I didn't know what he was going to say. But that whole thing of, I think it was Brooke Pryor last year asked him if he learned anything from watching that when he missed 2 games or whatever it was. And he listened to her long question and just goes, no. I was like, dude, you've thrown 4 touchdowns this season. Bro.
You started to see the attitude come out more and more.
Well, and an entitlement, right? It just seemed like he thought that he should, unequivocally be the guy. But I think by the end of the season, he was probably the only guy in the locker room who thought that.
Yeah, probably.
I
And I'm
mean,
not saying that he couldn't have ironed out his issues and been a halfway decent starter. You don't think that, but I still do. I still thought Alex Smith level starter was attainable for him, and probably still is under the right circumstances, but probably not
no.
being on the bench behind Jalen Hurts. But it's shitty, man. And he wanted to be. It almost reminds me of the Carson Wentz situation. At least Carson Wentz had an MVP season before he got injured. I mean, Kenny hasn't done shit. The only thing that you could hang your hat on with Kenny was that he was like tied or led the league in game-winning drives the last 2 years, and I mean that's a legitimately impressive stat, and that shows that he doesn't give up, and that's a good quality to have, and blah blah blah. But at the end of the day, he's backup quality until the fourth quarter. That's why I call him like mini Brady.
Yeah.
He's not good enough to talk as much as he's been talking, man. That's why, say what you will about Mason Rudolph, the guy's been a consummate professional the entire time.
Yeah, well, that's totally true. And like, yeah, I would. So yes, the 2-minute drives, that were the thing that we all that's the thing that all of us hung our hats on, right? And we all said, okay, well, at least he's shown like the ability to do this. But there were times though that I had to stop people and say, yes, he had this last minute drive and he got this win and it was epic and it was awesome. Christmas Eve, amazing moment. I probably, for me, will, yeah, not even, no question about it, with the Franco Harris thing, all that stuff. I was with my family. That will be the moment from Kenny Pickett's Steelers career that I will most fondly remember, right? I think that's, without question, the best moment of his career, and probably will be the best moment of his whole career. But I always urge people to say, the reason he needed a game-winning drive was because the defense held the Raiders to 10 points and they scored 6.
Tom Brady.
Like, it's not like it was a 27-24 win. Like, they scored 6 points until the last 30 seconds of the game. I mean, like, so yeah.
You're not wrong.
Yeah, he got it wrong. He got it done. And the same with the next week against Baltimore and all that kind of stuff. But you look back in retrospect and you say, okay, like, what were the moments? I mean, the thing that people look back on, is the first game after Canada left, the Bengals game where they looked good on offense and scored 16 points. Okay.
Put up 400 yards finally.
Okay. They put up 400 out of spite. Good job.
Yeah.
They still almost lost to Jake freaking Browning and they scored 16 points. Oh, well, you didn't catch the touchdown. Okay, big whoop. Then your big celebration moment would have been 23 points? Really? That would have been that epic in the year of our Lord 2023? Come on. Are you kidding?
It's illegal to score more than 25, Steve. Don't you know that?
What did the Chiefs average this year? Like 32 points and they had a down year? Come on.
But have the Chiefs never had a losing season like Mike Tomlin?
They haven't in a long time because they got a good quarterback. That's what you got to have. Right? I could give a shit about Andy Reid or Mike Tomlin. You need a good quarterback. And that's why the Steelers signed Russell Wilson. Oh my God, I can't believe I just said that sentence.
Yeah.
Just like
for those that anyone that's new, like, has to understand that Steve has been the biggest Russell Wilson hater, like, ever. And I love it. Like, his venom towards Russell Wilson has made for some great sound bites. The Russell Wilson, oh my God, shut the fuck up, is legendary. And so the fact that, like, the first thing that I thought of personally, this is me talking, when I heard Russell Wilson got signed, I went, oh, Jesus Christ. I had my genuine shock reaction, whatever. And then my second thought was, oh my God, Steve.
I know, that's so many of my friends, honestly. I've gotten so many texts like this week of people. One of my closest friends, we have a group chat that's 3 of us, and it's just, we just talk about sports in this chat, and he's a Seahawks fan, and he just like couldn't contain his joy because I've talked so much shit about Russell Wilson over the years, and he's just like loving it. I'm like, it's like a crossover episode for us. Yeah, it's wild. I mean, to me, I think the moving off, not bringing Russell Wilson in, I thought that made sense. It's the moving off of Pickett so quick that is shocking to me. And that's the thing that I just like, it's just so bizarre. And it's going to be a moment that is, it's just interesting, man. I don't know. It's something I can't put my finger on. The Steelers are operating in a new kind of way. And I give them a lot of credit. And I'm a lot more excited for 2024 than I was 5 days ago. I mean, at the very least, it's going to be interesting, and it's going to be good as shit for engagement for me and you. So I'll take it.
It's true. I mean, the Russell Wilson thumbnails are going to be a lot of fun. I can
Oh
tell
my
you that
God,
right
I can't believe it. I can't believe that this is what's happening. It's just so funny. It's wild. I feel like I've died, and like this is just like a joke that's being perpetuated on me.
Is this a new? I feel like we might be in a. I feel like the parallel universe theory almost certainly is true at this point. You know,
It's bizarre, man. But hey, I think it's, it's got potential, and it's better than whatever it was going to be. So I'm not mad.
so yeah. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, there's like even the people that are really like gung ho and hate this move, and I mean, I'm not really a big fan of the move, but I can understand it. And I mean, at least he's a quarterback that's played at a high level in the past. I mean, even under Sean Payton last year, what was he? He was like 25-8 or something. Like
26-8,
not
yeah.
bad. 26-8. That's not bad quarterback stats at all. So I mean, I'm not expecting him to be completely washed, and God, I hope he's not. I think that Arthur Smith, as a first-year OC, I think that the offense is going to be clunky. That's the word that I'll use. But it's all right. I think that we'll be all right, and I think that we'll probably we'll have a hearty 9-8, 10-7 run, and then we'll get to the wild card and we'll see what happens.
I think that is very fair. I think that's, I think that's about what I think. I think if Russell Wilson can come in, I think, and throw for 3,500 yards, 25 touchdowns, sub 12 interceptions, which that's one thing about him. He never really has thrown a lot of interceptions. His touchdown interception ratio is very good. So, 25 and 10, something like that. I don't see any reason that this team can't compete with anybody. I mean, I see it. The defense is there. Patrick Queen, second year of Joey Porter Jr. TJ is TJ. I think if your guys stay healthy and you have a full allotment, I don't see why not, man. I don't see why they can't compete. They won 10 freaking games last year with Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph throwing 9 touchdowns in the whole year. So like I think if they get decent quarterback play, it's only going to help the defense. It's obviously going to help the offense. I can see them winning 11 games if it goes well, or it's going to crash and burn, and Wilson will be absolutely terrible. Arthur Smith will be absolutely terrible, and we'll win 4 games, but then we'll be able to draft a quarterback next year. So,
Well, we're not going to get to the point like if there's 3 red lights, right? We never hit all 3. The Steelers, like that's
right.
just kind of not our forte. Like, so it's either Russ is going to be good and Arthur's going to be bad, or Arthur and Russ are both going to be good, but Patrick Queen's going to be bad and the defense will fall apart. Like, we'll just see what happens. But I think a lot of football is plugging holes in the ship, so to speak. And I think that's something that Mike Tomlin. I actually give Mike Tomlin a lot of credit for how he handled last year defensively, where we were just hemorrhaging yardage for the first probably 6-8 weeks or so. And I mean, like, we were joking about it. I was like making references to it on Let's Watch Pittsburgh, where it's just like, what happened to this goddamn defense? And even like we got like clowned on by the Patriots and whatnot. But I mean, that last like little bit of the season, we really were able to kind of lock a lot of teams down until we got to the wild card round. But like we had those pockets where you could see what this defense could be if they could put some consistent play together. So I can see it. I can see Patrick Quinn being a huge addition and kind of becoming I won't say the engine of the defense because that doesn't really make sense, but you get the idea behind it, hopefully. That could happen. I don't know. I feel like for as excited as I am about the season, there's like an equal amount of things that scare me. And you know what? Maybe that's good. Maybe it's good for me because the Steelers are a team that is notorious for not getting out of their comfort zone. And this is pretty much the exact opposite. Like, I won't say who, but there was someone that was on Twitter that was like, well, Mike Tomlin has really proven a lot of those people wrong that said that he won't ship people out. And I said, no, he's turning a new leaf. This isn't a this isn't a habit.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens, man. I'm excited, and I don't know. I think if I had to give a prediction, just really based on, I haven't even seen the schedule yet, but I would say probably 10-7. That's my early guess.
All right. Well, winning season. We'll see. Carrie's asking about the Zach Gentry thing.
Oh.
There's a rumor about Zach Gentry and a certain player's wife. I don't want to give it any. Yeah, I don't want to give it on credence on air or anything, but just search Zach Gentry, Kenny Pickett on Twitter or something. Well, guys, it's been a lot of fun hanging out today. It takes a lot to get me out of my bat cave in the off season. Just felt we owed it to you to come talk about the life and death of Kenneth Shane, first of his name. I am going to get back to my off-season retreat and start working on some nicknames for Russell Wilson. I can't believe this is my life now, but it is. Yeah. Gage, anything final thoughts you want to leave the folks with?
I don't know, man. They're going for it, and I give them credit for that. I guess we'll see how it goes. I think that maybe there's been some internal conversations that have been had from some higher ups that are like, hey, listen, we're sick of the same shit. And I appreciate it. I appreciate that they're doing something about it. And even if we like crash and burn and go 5-12, which I don't think is going to happen, but even if we look back on this season as a tire fire, I appreciate that they went for it as opposed to sticking to it and just praying to eke out 9 wins. I appreciate that they took a chance. You can't say that they didn't. Now they were kind of forced to take the chance a little bit because Kenny Pickett was not playing well, but it's good to see that they did something about it. So God bless him. So I do, on a side note, I do hope to have a couple of videos at some point during the off season. There'll be just some fun breakdowns and whatnot. Probably after the draft, if I had to guess. Kind of like I did with Kenny Pickett, which I was wrong about, but that's okay. If you put yourself out there, put your opinions out there, you're going to be wrong sometimes. That's how it goes. But other than that, you guys can follow me on Twitter at Gage Ryan Video. You can follow me on YouTube at Gage Ryan Video. That's my Yu-Gi-Oh channel if you're interested. My movie podcast channel with my friend Slim is hopefully going to be having more episodes out soon. We already have 3. It's the Screen Slashers. Check that out. And here we go.
And that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold Gage said so. We haven't even mentioned it's Stone Cold Day, by the way. 3/16. Right. Yes. Shout out Stone Cold Steve Austin, the GOAT. One of my good friends, South Florida Steel 777. More hate, Russ or DK? I will answer that easily. It's DK, because at least Russ is a good person. I have problems with both of their work, but Russ is at least a good person. He's just a little corny.
Unless you go next to charity. I have heard some bad things about that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I don't know. Whatever.
Well, all things are marginal, especially in
they
the world
hire
of,
people to run these things. I don't know. All right. I'm just looking forward to finding out who Sierra is going to sleep with in the Steelers tight end room. That's
well, Zach Gentry's gone, so who's going to take over? Is going to be
Darnell Washington. Yeah. Well, shout out Darnell Washington.
Apparently Darnell Washington's going to go off in Arthur Smith's offense. That's what everybody keeps saying.
If Darnell Washington catches more than 10 passes this year, I'll do a live stream buck ass naked, okay? It's not going to happen.
Oh, I wouldn't say that.
It's not going to happen. He's going to catch 6 balls this year. It's okay.
He's going to catch like probably 50 or so, and it's going to be a really awkward situation.
No way. Get out of here. And I'd be happy. I'd be happy. Go Dogs, all right? Folks, I love y'all. Thanks for always supporting us. I'll see you when I see you. Until then, here we go, I guess.